town of Greendale, where it always feels like Halloween, there lived a girl who was half witch, half mortal, who, on her 16th birthday, would have to choose between two worlds, the witch world of her family and the human world of her friends. Happy birthday, sweet 16. And that girl is me.
Are you willing to forsake the path of light and follow the path of night?
It's very thousand to one. It's very thousand.
I can choose to be afraid of my powers, or I can use them.
We've heard reports of levitation, the slaughter of demons, resurrection of witches. How does a first-year, half-mortal student manage that?
I feel I must warn you. This is who I am.
Sabrina!
You have loved the power I have given you.
What is it you want from me?
The balance is off in hell, so it is off in heaven, so it is off on earth. To preserve one realm, you must preserve them all.
Embrace your destiny, Sabrina.
Hell's under new management now.
I'm the devil's worst nightmare.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Will you help me?
Here we go again.
If you want the crown, you're going to have to prove yourself worthy of it. That's my girl.
Being Queen of Hell isn't a summer job. You're putting the coven in peril.
Aloha! This is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man, coming to you live all the way from Hawaii, here on the island of Oahu, bringing you, yes you, the best movie reviews on the entire island of Oahu. And yes, this is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man. And I am coming to you today talking about a TV show review, something that started all the way back in 2018 and has just pretty much wrapped up, its series completion here in 2020 on Netflix, and that is the chilling Tales of Sabrina. Now remember our rating scale, shock a thumbs up. It's good to see, I recommend it. Shock a thumbs down, it's junk, I don't recommend it. And for the chilling Tales of Sabrina, it is a shock a thumbs up. Now, when this series was announced originally, it was by the production team of Greg Berlanti from the CW, who does The Flash, Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, and Riverdale, just to name a few properties. And originally, basically Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which is what this show is based on from the Archie comics. Some of you might remember the old, I want to say Nickelodeon television show with Melissa Joan Hart playing Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Back in the I'd say the mid to late 90s, I guess. So Greg Berlanti and the CW guys, they got together, they pitched this show. It was originally going to be aired, I think, on Fox, they said, then moved to the CW. And then Netflix came in and said, hey, we'll take it for a couple of seasons at least and see how it goes. So in 2018 it aired, and I wanted to see it because I'd always been interested in Sabrina the Teenage Witch, before Marvel Comics, before DC Comics as a child, after all the Disney Gold Key comic books, with the Disney characters. You moved into like Archie and the gang, and of course Sabrina was a character in that, and then she got her own comic. And I always enjoyed those, hers especially because it had that little twist of magic in it. And this is the exact same thing, except taken just as Greg Berlanti's team did to Riverdale, to Archie and the gang, it's not so much happy-go-lucky guys. I mean, they try to be happy-go-lucky, and the same thing with Sabrina. But they are in some dark stuff of modern times, almost. Before I get too much further, this stars Kieran Shipka as Sabrina, Miranda Otto as one of her aunts, Lucy Davis as her other aunt, who watches out for her as she's in high school, Michelle Gomez, which plays Lilith, and also her school, one of her school teachers, also Richard Coyle, Jazz Sinclair, and Lashlyn Watson. All round out the cast. And Jazz Sinclair and Lashlyn Watson are part of the Sabrina trio of friends, of female friends. This is a very female-empowered centric kind of movie, well, centric kind of TV show. Definitely showing what young girls can do if they're willing to, you know, to take those chances and really go for it. Just outside of the darker sources of magic that this puts in, this is a modern telling of, you know, teenage angst and drama. The likes of which, you know, we had seen before in like 90210 and you know, Beverly Hills and all those other Gossip Girl even maybe. And so this really plays well to the young adult crowd and also you know, teenagers who might be in these situations. There's plenty of social commentary on women empowerment, on gender identity, as one of Sabrina's friends, Lashlyn Watson, actually expresses herself, you know, as a, you know, she is a girl, a young woman, but she expresses herself and identifies as a man and changes her name to Theo later in the show, from Sarah or something, I believe. And so it kind of goes with that, and you know, it faces all of those dramas and challenges that we'd expect to see in a much more adult setting, far away from the comic book. Just loosely, well, not loosely based, but I mean, you know, because you got Sabrina, her aunts, the whole Academy of Magic, you know, her high school, but in this, we find out something much, much more darker, that this show actually turns out to be a resemblance of, maybe I'd say closest to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Whereas instead of the Slayer, we have a young half-mortal, half-witch character, half-human, half-witch character, played by Sabrina, who has to kind of merge the two societies together with both her witch friends, her family, her aunts, and her cousins, along with that of Greendale, where she lives, the humans residing there. And we find that very much like Buffy, you know, the gates of hell lie in the mines within the town of Greendale. And, you know, very much like Buffy's Hellmount. And that Sabrina's friends turn out to be the Scooby Gang of the entire town, to say the least, with Sabrina leading the charge most often, but with everyone finding their own special talents and abilities that help out the entire group against battling the forces of what would be called evil, as they take on the devil himself and many, many demons from the gates of hell, as that tries to come into our world and take over. Many of the witches are all for this. Some of the witches are like, it's not really our fight. We don't care either way. But Sabrina, being half mortal, is definitely opposed to this and her friends, her town getting hurt. And so that's where most of the drama lies. Now this was actually two seasons, but Netflix went ahead and separated it into 2 parts for the first season, so 2018, 2019, and then for part 1 and 2, 2020 brought forth part 3, which just completed, here in the spring. Of 2020, with in the fall the final section coming out of about, each season is about 8 episodes, or each part is about 8 episodes. So basically you get 4 seasons worth of Sabrina, which works out beautifully. Where it ends at part 3 looked like the end of the series to me, until just recent press announcements says that there is one last installment, 4th part, coming along the way, which will be showing up here sometime in the fall, probably September, November timeframe, to complete the Sabrina series, which showed everything from Sabrina trying to fit in at her mortal school to giving up and completely going to the Witches Academy, to becoming the very queen of hell itself, as we discover a little bit of spoilers, that Sabrina is actually a daughter of Satan himself. Now, this show being on Netflix, it is able to get away with a little bit of nudity. You see a lot of male butt shots, maybe some side boob every once in a while. Nothing too dramatic there, but you do see a lot of blood, which definitely plays towards the darker cynicism of the show, versus these, say devil worshippers, Satanists, witches, classical evil witches, before they are, overshadowed by the good which Sabrina brings. Kind of ushering out the old phase of witchcraft and, being seen as evil, into more of the more Wiccan, positive white magics of today. Well, or, of what some covens show and tend to follow. Now, when this show aired in 2018, there was like a big fuss from, I think, a bunch of Satanists or devil worshippers. Well, I guess, I don't know. Is that a bad word to say? Bad term nowadays in this woke society? But because I guess a bunch of Satanists really, were upset at Netflix for showing Satanism and their satanic rituals in such a bad light. Which is classically what you're shown in most horror movies. Even as far back, as recent as Buffy, that had not changed. That was all kind of shown that, yes, there was a different light, but you had to get past the dreary facade of what it was. And overall, this show really does hammer down those parts that, if you didn't know much about, Satanism, it really kind of gives you a good background into what generic, maybe stereotypical Satanism is like. So, maybe that's what it was too stereotypical for this group. But regardless of it, it was very entertaining. So it is a strong shock, thumbs up. The only thing I didn't like with Sabrina, all the other high school kids look like really hot. I mean, Sabrina, played by Kieran Shipka, is okay. In the comics, well, even in Archie, you got Betty and Veronica, and they're like mega hot. You can see why Archie's like thrown between those two, and even Sabrina when she came over into his comic every once in a while, because they're stacked. Here, Kira Shipka isn't quite that, and she's kind of behind even the other teenagers in the show. But I mean, she does have a beauty, just not, not kind of, I guess maybe those looks are more of like a 20 or, 18, 19, 20-year-old. Maybe it was just depicted in the comics. That's the only thing I was a little bit more disappointed. She's a bit more realistic as a teenage girl. A little flatter, I guess, though. But overall, she does really well. Everyone in this show does really well. And kudos to all the actors and actresses in this show, because they did an outstanding job in all of this, as it talks about the social commentary of not only religion, but peer pressure, losing one's virginity and such, to basic dating aspects, everything that a teenager could be going through, drugs, sex, peer pressure, etc. It's all talked about and handled in here very much. Again, I'm going to reference Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because Joss Whedon cut, and molded that show so well that it has been the template to follow. And Sabrina, well, the Chilling Tales of Sabrina is no different in that respect. So if you loved Angel, if you loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, even if you loved Harry Potter and you were really loving the last two movies where it moved into the really darkness against Voldemort and all hope seemed lost kind of a scenario, then you will really enjoy Sabrina, the Chilling Tales of Sabrina. I keep wanting to say the Teenage Witch, but it's, she is a teenage witch, but it's not the name of the show. It is the Chilling Tales of Sabrina on Netflix, and an outstanding job. This is kind of what the Fantastic Beasts should have been, because if you've seen my review of the first Fantastic Beast movie, I'm sorry, the second one, Rise of whatever that guy's name is, the bad guy that's in love with Dumbledore. This is what it kind of turns out that it should have been, the Chilling Tales of Sabrina, because it carries that darker tone so much more, but yet, you've got the school setting, like Hogwarts, like everything that you had gotten in Harry Potter, with the class differences, it's like, oh, you're a muggle, you're, not a true witch, etc. But here, it's Sabrina. And it's like, well, she is part witch, but she's also part human. She gets a lot of that hate that Hermione got, but still she is able to come back, and she turns into very much a Harry Potter kind of power player in stopping these dark prophecies, this evil from taking over her city, her town, and eventually even the world, just as Harry Potter did. Something that Fantastic Beasts only seem to stumble around and never really reaching until the very end, and then holding everything off until part 2 of the movie that, they're still filming. Whereas here in Sabrina, within these 4 parts on Netflix, four seasons essentially of an 8-episode show, it is fantastically done, and we still have one more season, part 4, left to go later this fall, and I can't wait for it. And I hope during, these uncertain times, these lockdown times, nothing is at the movie theaters. You might as well go back and watch a very well-crafted television show on the theatrical level of Sabrina, The Chilling Tales of Sabrina on Netflix. All right, again, shock a thumbs up. Check it out when and however you can. All right, thank you so much. This is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man, here in Hawaii, saying mahalo and aloha.